welcome to another episode of Bridge the Channel, the first episode of our new season. So welcome back. I hope you had a very nice summer wherever you're spending, and that you're settling in back into your normal life. We have quite a few things to talk to you about today, which makes sense. We're back in business. We're back in the political business. We will focus quite a bit on UK politics today, but the reason is that what's happening in the UK over the last couple of weeks, both in the government and the opposition, I think will have big importance and will make a big difference in the relations of the UK with the EU moving forward. And in some ways, what's happening in the UK right now may be a foreshadowing of a lot of political developments in Europe down the line. So another political season with Bridge the Channel. Let's go see what we have for you today. So let's start with the opposition, with the Labour Party under Keir Starmer, who has been doing some really interesting stuff, particularly with regards to the topics that we're discussing here, transatlantic geopolitics, EU-UK relations, and the rest. And the reason I say this is that because Keir Starmer has actually started doing something that we weren't used to before. Actually, two things. A, he has been positioning himself increasingly on questions of international affairs. Up until now, he was very much a very domestic-focused leader of the opposition. And the second point is that he's actually started taking positions. Keir Starmer has been actually quite famous for trying to fudge various things in trying to position the Labour Party in taking power, winning the elections against the Conservatives. But over the last few weeks, he has actually been much more outspoken about what he wants to do with the UK's relationship with Europe once he enters power. He has been much more open in discussing with European officials. He has been to Paris to meet with Emmanuel Macron. He has met EU officials, and he also traveled to Canada to meet other centre-left leaders from around the world. Generally, the mood music that's coming out of the Labour Party is that it is going to be a much more constructive partner with the EU if and when it gets into power. And the reason this is quite unique and interesting is that up until now, a major part of Starmer's opposition strategy was to not talk about Brexit at all. Now he actually seems to be willing to reopen aspects of Brexit, primarily to bring the UK closer to the EU on various economic issues, which probably shows that he feels really safe with his opinion poll lead right now. What should the EU make of all those Keir Starmer movements? It probably is good news, because it means that there is a chance that the next Prime Minister is going to be much friendlier towards Europe. But we also need to take in mind that Starmer still shows quite a lot of the same mistakes that the British political class has done with regards to Europe over the last few years. That is, he says a lot about what he wants, and he presents it to the voters as something that he will do, but he doesn't take too much into account about what the EU is willing to give him. So we should be prepared once Starmer gets into power that there's going to be some immediate dosage of optimism and good vibes, but it doesn't mean that this will translate into political developments all of a sudden. I think Starmer will have to know that being friendlier to the EU does not mean that the EU will be a much easier partner for the UK. So from the opposition in Europe, we're going to move into another topic which is dominating British politics currently, which is the government and climate and the environment. The big political news of the last few days here in London has been that Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has announced that he will delay various measures that were part of the UK's commitment to the climate transition, to achieving various of its goals by 2030. This actually created quite a few political debates around here, and it clearly signaled that part of where Sunak wants to find the next election is going to be on the question of climate. The reason, of course, is that we had a quite infamous by now by-election in an area near London, where it was perceived that the Conservatives actually won it against what most opinion polls said, thanks to issues of climate, and particularly concerns of people about how to pay about elements of the green transition. Now, what this means for the UK is not exactly clear. Both sides of the debate actually bring to bear various opinion polls that show that people may not be happy with aspects of the green transition, but they also support it in principle. So it's really difficult to know whether this will translate into major political gains for the Conservatives in the next election, and they anyway have to fight various other problems as they get there. But I think what this happens now in the UK is potentially more important for Europe, because if green issues and the environment and climate remain part of the political agenda and a high place in the political agenda ahead of the next elections, maybe this will be a signal to the rest of Europe that actually climate has to be also a very, very high-profile topic. We're already seeing how the green transition has political repercussions and creates political reactions in places such as the Netherlands, Germany, France, Sweden, in many other European countries. Regardless of whether Sunak achieves anything to win votes thanks to his toning down of the climate commitments, if his example is seen as being politically expedient, it may also provide impetus to other political actors around Europe to make climate a major part of their platform. So watch this space. This may actually be way more important for Europe down the line than what it will be for the UK. So that was another episode of Bridge, the channel, welcoming you into the new political season with a bang, I would say. Always interesting stuff happening in British politics, and I think you will agree with me that those things also matter for Europe. We are predicting to have a pretty interesting political season ahead of us. There's going to be loads of elections in Europe in the next few months. They're going to matter quite a lot, especially with regards to how the EU is dealing with the war in Ukraine. Of course, the political calendar in the United States is heating up, and we're also going to be having loads of topics to discuss in the triangle between London, Brussels, and Washington, D.C. Loads of things to keep track of, and make sure to follow the Martin Center for all the relevant political analysis. Until next time, take care.